effect that that's had on the locker room. Do you think that if Kyle is able to scheme up a good game plan for Darnold and Darnold looks good, that will cause any controversy among this fan base and moving forward? Or do you think that would be way too early to even hypothesize about?
You're really setting me up to be the Brock hater right now. That's what's
I'm
really happening right
sorry.
now. Everyone calls me a Brock hater for some odd reason, because I tell how I see it, and I haven't seen the player that everyone thinks is a top 10 quarterback, right? And I've said this on your show once. And so for me, with the last two starts, there's a lot of concern there. When you look at some of the statistics, one of the statistics you threw out, 20th in passing attempts, but fourth highest in turnover-worthy plays. Those turnover-worthy plays become interception, become turnovers. The numbers catch up to
especially
themselves.
without especially without all his, every elite weapon healthy. We're kind of, or pressure in his face, or gotta have it moments where we're kind of seeing, if maybe it's not set up completely perfectly, that some hiccups show up a little bit more. But go ahead.
Absolutely, especially when you're throwing with anticipation and you don't have the arm strength to put it on someone, right? Like you watch Brock Purdy, everything's anticipation, over the middle anticipation throws. You're gonna have a lot of those turnover worthy plays in the sense of you gotta throw it out in front. Now, if something happens at the break point where the receiver goes to break, he slips up. The corner's physical enough at the line of scrimmage that throws off your timing. You're gonna get those turnovers. Now, it is a Sam Darnold audition. You've seen two bad games, and it looks like from what we've seen, it looks like Brock Purdy has struggled the last two games. Now, granted, Cleveland is one of the best defenses in the NFL. Gardner Minshew just put up 38 points on him, 30 points on him, right? So it's something to look at. Now, I'm not trying to be super critical of Brock Purdy because those are the two worst games we've seen from him. Now, what I am seeing is an opportunity for Sam Darnold to come out, play really well, win a game, going into a bye week. If you're going to change quarterbacks or change starters at a position, the bye week is the perfect time to do so. So I think the 49ers could definitely move on with Sam Darnold, but I think it's a very low likelihood.
Hi guys. Was that me or was that you? I'm not.
I don't know. I think it might have been you because it gave me the boot.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But going back, we're back. Everyone back. Don't leave. Make sure y'all stay. Make sure I hit that subscribe button to Ashley show as well. But like as I
Yeah.
was saying, like it's gonna be one of those situations where we've seen Brock struggle. Now it's an audition. If Sam Darnold plays really well, you have to. It's in the back of your head that Brock Purdy struggled, and you could say he's cost you
You
two
think
games.
you, you think if he plays really well that there'll be like an actual thought, and I'm not saying, I think in some fans' mind, but do you think in Kyle Shanahan's mind that there'll be an actual thought to switch quarterbacks? And if yes, I want to make an argument why I think that's a bad idea. But go ahead and answer the question
Um,
first.
I could see the possibility. No, I don't think it's a high possibility. I think it's very slim. But it's a possibility, and the reason why I say this is because we've seen how Kyle Shanahan's talked about Sam Darnold. He praised him. He's called him potentially the next Steve Young. We see Matt Miyoko came out and said he's one of the best throwers of a
Best
football
throws.
we've had in a long time. Like, and that's not coming from Matt Miyoko. That's coming from people in the organization. I don't see Matt saying that just to say that.
People were so mad about at Matt for saying that. I'm like, he doesn't just say things for the heck of it. Like someone definitely
Exactly.
let him know that.
So for me, what I'm looking at as well is I asked Jesse Naylor in a text message that we had, and I said, "Hey, this was before the season even started." I said, "We found out Kyle fell in love with Brock Purdy after 3 games, right?" He said that's when he knew he had a quarterback. How fast does it take for Kyle Shanahan to fall out of love? That's a big question because the moment you start losing games and it starts making it harder on yourself to win those games with the quarterback that you're playing with, and then you have a quarterback come in and you're able to call everything and you win a game, you're thinking in the back of your head like, man, am I making the right decision? So I think it's very slim, and I do see some of you in the chat, some of you guys who are normally from my channel, saying,
Kyle falls
um,
in love on the first date. I like this one.
absolutely,
But okay, I have an argument really quick because I agree that I think Kyle Shanahan's love is just um, very sporadic. I think he falls in love very fast and quick, and then at the slightest hiccup can find a new love. I think he would. I think Kyle would lose the locker room. He
absolutely,
when he traded away Trey Lance, he called Brock Purdy the real deal. He said that it was because they believed in Brock Purdy. I think right now the locker room is behind him and behind Brock Purdy. I feel like if he continue if because then what happens if Sam Darnold has a bad game? Now
you
the
never go
football
back.
team is feeling, you know what I mean? Like the football everything is unraveling, and if no quarterback feels stable, then the team is going to always feel unstable. They have to like have confidence in one guy, and all that would be doing is Kyle Shanahan admitting that he doesn't have confidence in any of his guys. And I think that that is when you would start to see um, maybe people start second guessing Kyle Shanahan. I think he's been able to have a lot of grace with his players and they've stayed behind him in a lot of his decisions. But I think when you start messing around for the third time on your quarterback, um, I just don't. I don't think Kyle Shanahan would do it even if he wanted to, because I think right now he needs to like instill that he has faith in Brock Purdy. I think if it was like a shoulder injury or something, like if he, I know I will say, and this is concerning. I don't know if you heard about this, but Brock Purdy told Troy Aikman that his elbow had problems. So like I'm wondering, could Kyle say, "Oh, he had a concussion, but he's also been a little off. He's been feeling soreness in his elbow." Now, the only problem is Kyle was asked
Rest.
about his elbow injury today, and Kyle said that Brock Purdy hasn't mentioned that to him at all. Now, I do think that that could be a good like setup excuse if he were to do that, if he were to try to move on to Sam Darnold for a little while. But I just feel like that would be as like a fan base and as a player where you kind of give up hope on Kyle Shanahan, because at some point Sam Darnold's going to have a bad game, and then what do you do? Like there's always going to be a quarterback that has two bad games, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't just completely be spinning that wheel forever. You have to. We're going against the 49ers are going against the Bengals. Joe Burrow had a terrible start to the year, and the Bengals stayed with him throughout the entire time
But they
because
had to
they
because they
have.
paid him.
But
That's
I think they would have done that either way. Do
but
you
if
not?
no because think about it. So if Joe Burrow, it's sorry to cut you off, but if Joe Burrow
No
wasn't
worries.
paid and he was stinking it up, right, and he wasn't like the number one overall pick and like paid heavy dollars,
I
you would see them more like, let's go to. Do we have a guy who's our backup that could win us games? Because some of those games was like they're very winnable for the Bengals, but they were falling. They were falling because their offense wasn't doing shit. So it's like at that point, it's like you kind of ride with Joe Burrow because you know he's hurt, and you know how good of a quarterback he was. You paid him for a reason. They just got done paying him, so a little different situation. But I think Brock and the free like I kind of agree with you in the sense of if you do go with Sam Darnold, I don't think you could ever go back to Brock Purdy. I really don't because
Yeah.
you pretty much convinced your team. I don't believe in him. So that's why I think it's very slim. It's a hard situation because if Sam comes out and plays well, the conversation is going to be had.
I think it'll be had like in media and fan bases, but I think it's very normal for a quarterback to get a concussion and the backup to come and play for one game. And usually you want the backup to perform well and win the game. Like I think that this could be very routine. They come out of the bye week, Purdy's healthy, he plays. I think where the real like if you're going to actually talk about tension and where the possibility of like wanting to make a quarterback change actually would be is if coming out of the bye week, Purdy really stinks it up and struggles. And like if it would have to be both things. Sam Darnold would have to look fantastic against the Bengals. They'd have to go into the bye week. They'd have to start Purdy, and then Purdy would have to look really poor, and then people would be like, okay. And then maybe you could go, oh, he's still concussed, that elbow. That's when I think those conversations could pick up, and that Kyle Shanahan could have like a little bit of, I don't know, credit or a little leeway. I don't think coming out of the bye week they could start Sam Darnold right away and have anyone support that. I know that some people were like comparing it to the Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith situation. I don't think that Purdy has performed like Alex Smith was right now, and I don't think that Sam Darnold has the promise that Colin Kaepernick had, even though I know that Kyle has a lot of faith in him. What do you think about my theory that this conversation won't actually pick up unless Brock Purdy really stinks it up when he comes back?
And I don't know, because it kind of is similar, because I know you did mention Alex Smith. Alex Smith was 6-2 at that point, and he was 70% completing like 70% of his passes, 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, I believe, which isn't terrible. It's not great, but he was playing well, and they just rode with a hot hand. I think if Sam Darnold
does, they had already like failed at the most pivotal moments with Alex Smith, where with Purdy they haven't like gotten there yet. Obviously they got to the NFC Championship game, but like it's not, they were riding with Alex Smith for a while before making that decision. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
I feel like it would feel premature to do this to Purdy at this point.
I get what you're saying. For me, I think it's definitely a conversation that will be had, especially because if you're going to make a change, you prefer to do it at the bye week, because it gives you more time to adjust your offense and stuff like that. Now, what has me questioning things is this: for Brock Purdy, I didn't hear the comment live because I was watching it in a pizza place with like 75 family members, because we have one family member who's a Vikings fan, so we all got together.
Nice.
So for me,
I bet that turned out way different than you expected it to.
It was
like he probably
fun.
went into that being like, oh, this is gonna suck for me, and then like everyone around is 49er fans, and they're like, wait, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, it was funny because
sick.
him and his family, so it's 4 of them, they're diehard Vikings fans. So like they were going crazy. Like, that's cool to see, like, their family. That's cool. Like, props, y'all handed it to us. But I didn't get to hear that, and I saw that on the timeline. I was like, whoa, he said, you don't say that without it meaning something. You know what I mean?
It's confusing that Kyle shut it down so fast today. Did you watch the press conference?
No, I didn't.
He was very quick with it. He was very just like, no, you hadn't mentioned that to me. I was like, oh.
I mean, that means he has. If Kyle's saying it that way, he has.
Oh, really? Okay, I was actually second guessing that. I was like, maybe Purdy hasn't said that to Kyle, but then I was like, why on earth would Purdy have said that? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if Kyle's being honest and Purdy has not mentioned that to Kyle Shanahan, then that's like a major red flag for him to have mentioned it to Troy Aikman. Would Troy Aikman be bringing up like old information?
No.
It just seems messy for him to have said that on the broadcast. Like, as an announcer, don't you know kind of what's like supposed to be confidential and what's not? I feel like Purdy as a quarterback, don't you know what you're supposed to say to an announcer or not? Like, you know that the information you're going to give them is stuff that they could potentially repeat. Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing seems very confusing and messy. And, you know, with the concussion and with his poor play, it does set up to be a good excuse, but it just seems like I said, the word that keeps coming to my mind is just premature. I don't put this past Kyle. I don't put this past this 49ers team with the constant quarterback drama that they have. It just seems too soon to be like really bringing up this conversation, especially when we're bringing it up with Sam Darnold. I mean, I feel like a different commenter said this, but this is exactly why they traded away Trey Lance, was so that they didn't have this conversation, and now they're having it with Sam Darnold.
And honestly, the only reason why we're having it with Sam Darnold is because we saw 2 back-to-back poor performances from Brock Purdy. If it wasn't back-to-back poor performances, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If he hasn't thrown 3 interceptions in the past 2 games, and 2 of those losses could be charted back to Brock Purdy from poor performance, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. The bad play came at the worst timing for the 49ers, because now you have a concussion and injury, and now you're giving someone an opportunity to take that opportunity, who's trying to resurrect his career. If he has a good game and they win, you could go back to the locker room and say, "Hey, we're trying to win ball games here. Sam Darnold just won us the ball game."
But wouldn't the players say like Purdy has looked like an MVP candidate up until 2 weeks ago?
You can, but you could also say we have faith in both quarterbacks, and we're going to roll with the hot hand. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's afraid to go either quarterback.
George Kittle came out this offseason and said he just wants stability at the quarterback, that he hasn't played a single season with one stable quarterback, and that's all he's wanted for his career. Like, I feel like the locker room would start to be like, what is going on?